So, Zak Bagans of Ghost Adventures has a spooky haunted museum in Las Vegas, and it has a lot. 33 rooms you can see through a guided tour, and it's chock full of all kinds of scary imagery or cursed artifacts. Like, visitors need to sign a waiver before even entering the museum. Plus it's age restricted. And now they don't guarantee that you'll have your own haunting experience, but they do talk about how other guests have had other experiences. Also, people have reported everything from hearing strange voices and seeing apparitions to experiencing physical reactions, including temporary paralysis of an arm or scratch marks on their skin. So there are, accounts. But on that note, if you are looking to see what, they have in store, listen in to this top 10 scary items at Zak Bagans Haunted Museum. And right before I get into it, remember to check out Top 10 Central, a new channel that's going to be on, and it has a bunch of cool hosts. Think about it, check it out. Okay, let's get into it. At number 10, the DYBBUK box. Now, do you remember that the 2012 movie The Possession was based on a true story? Well, that story was based on a DYBBUK box. Now that specific box that the movie was based on is one that now Zak Bagans has at his haunted museum. And this box is actually a wine cabinet that is allegedly haunted by a DYBBUK. And now, a DYBBUK is Yiddish for a malicious possessing spirit that people believe to be a dislocated soul of a dead person. And so it becomes trapped in an object, like this wine box, until a person helps release the spirit. Now in Bagans' box, it's believed the restless spirit can possess the living, and that's why Zak Bagans is keeping the cabinet closed, because he's a little bit scared of it himself, I would think. Now, the box was originally posted on eBay for sale by a man named Kevin Manis, who was having a ton of trouble with it. Anytime he gave it as a gift to someone, they experienced strange issues and its darkness, and it passed through the hands of others afterwards, as they would each have their own unnerving experiences with the box. At Zak Bagans Museum, if you want to see the box, you must insist to see it and be 18 years of age or older and sign a liability waiver, because they're not joking around. Now, not all exhibits at the museum stay open all the time. At number 9, we have the Devil's Rocking Chair. Bagans acquired a rocking chair that was owned by the family whose stories are probably what inspired The Conjuring 3. Now, this was the Devil Made Me Do It case in the early 80s. During stories talking about David Glatzel's possession, Ed and Lorraine Warren said the rocking chair would rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. Now, David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. So, take that as you will. Now, with all this spooky stuff in mind, Zak Bagans was just sold. He was like, I need this chair. This is, of course, though, a thing that happened on the opening night of the Devil Chair exhibit, where he was like, look at this cool chair. 5 people bawled uncontrollably and 1 woman collapsed. So, according to TMZ, just a few hours after Bagans opened the exhibit, he shut down the exhibit. But then, a couple weeks later, opened it back up, less issues. But that opening night started with a bang. But on to number 8, Jack's van. Now, another thing Bagans has is Dr. Jack Kevorkian's assisted suicide van. Nicknamed Dr. Death, Kevorkian helped over 100 people with terminal illnesses end their lives during the 90s. He did his time for prison for 8 years under charges of second-degree murder and died in 2011 at the age of 83. Now, there is obviously a wide contrast in views on what took place in this van. Some see what the doctor did as monstrous and pin him as a murderer, while others paint him as an activist who wanted to make sure those who wanted to pass did so painlessly and on their own terms. Either way, heightened emotions can come to those who see the van, and fear may be one of them, and that might be one reason that Zak Bagans was like, I want this in my haunted museum. So let's go on to number 7, another thing there, BELA Lugosi's mirror. Now, this mirror has many stories attached to it, especially since its namesake comes from its connection to Bela Lugosi. And now, if that isn't ringing any bells, he is most well known for playing Dracula in the 1931 film, so quite a ways back. Now, guides of the tour at the museum say that Lugosi would use the mirror as a medium for scrying and trying to talk to his dead wife, but the truth is the only confirmed connection is that it was originally said to have once been in Bela Lugosi's house, plus none of his 5 wives died while he was married to them, and there is no documentation of him participating in the occult, but the mirror has seen some things. It was in the room when Frank Salitre was mysteriously murdered, a crime that still has not been solved. He was found bound up in the master bedroom with a single gunshot in the back of his head. So maybe those who let their minds wander while looking into this mirror fall ill when they project those ideas onto the mirror, or maybe the mirror itself has the capacity to haunt and curse those who look into it. Now, people say they've seen entities reach out to them through the mirror or have the sensation of having their necks bitten while looking into it, but nothing has been confirmed. On to number 6, John Morell's preserved thumb. And now, I don't know exactly what Zak Bagans is saying about this thumb, but it's not John Morell's. Now, he's probably basing his information off an incredulous book written by Virgil Stewart, and the backstory is, John Morrell in this book is said to be an occult leader and the head of the mystic clan that's purpose was to steal slaves to plan an overthrowing of authority. But this book was written by Virgil Stewart, who wrote it in an attempt to get more clout after capturing John Morrell, who was likely just a horse thief and a slave stealer. Now, Stewart just kind of blew the situation completely out of proportion to try to get more street cred, so while the thumb is real and a real thumb, it's not MURRELLS, who probably died in prison and was buried with all of his thumbs on him. And now, that's not to say what it stands for isn't scary. People in Mississippi read the book and believed in it, believed in what Stewart was saying. In Tennessee, they knew the truth because they knew Stewart and he was just fabricating things, but in Mississippi, ooh, Nelly, they were suspicious of one another so much. The summer of 1835, people in Mississippi were killing one another and their innocent slaves on the off chance any of them was part of this mystic clan, which is a clan that didn't exist. So now you know the harm in falsifying stories, you can see how this little thumb is a creepy bugger and a symbolism of something bigger than it is. So, worth it in a way to have at the museum. Now, another scary thing at number 5, a cauldron previously owned by Ed Gein. Zak Bagans bought this cauldron at an auction and apparently it was found in a shed on the old Gein property. And if you need a refresher on who old Gein was, he was a grave robber and murderer that would experiment on human bodies, making masks of human skin to wear around the house and he used skulls as soup bowls. So no, I'm not kidding. This was his cauldron and okay, what's the big deal, right? It's a cauldron. Well, it turns out, according to the person who auctioned off this item, Ed Gein stored body parts and blood in this cauldron in his shed. Now, obviously as a collector of the horrendous and haunting, Bagans decided he needed it and now it's on display. Now one thing is for sure, that cauldron would make some killer soup. At number 4, Charles Manson's portraits. Another thing in this haunted museum is a portrait of Charles Manson. And now the portrait isn't just haunting due to it being of a mass murderer and cult leader. No, it's haunting because when you look into the eyes of this image, you are looking at Charles Manson. Well, in a way, you're looking at his ashes. The artist of the portrait, Ryan Almighty, used parts of Charles Manson's ashes for the eyes of this piece. And even wilder, Almighty achieved the reddish-brown hues of the piece by using his own blood as the pigment. So this piece really is a little piece of the artist and his muse. Creepy. Now, let's go to number 3, Demon House Staircase. So you may think a staircase doesn't have much inherent scary ideas attached to it, and you're not wrong, but this staircase was a part of a whirlwind scary experience. LaToya Ammons and her 3 children allegedly underwent demonic possession in the house the stairs originated from. While living there while renting, Ammons and her children experienced possession and terrifying experiences like walking up walls, floating over a bed, and feeling choked. So, very haunting experiences. And all this escalated to the point that the Catholic Church backed up a priest who performed 3 exorcisms on Ammons. And then the family relocated for their own safety with the help of Department of Child Services, and Zak Bagans then bought the house. He was interested with the reported demonic possessions and stories and explored the house until he demolished it, thinking, better done with it. He only kept a staircase and a little bit of carpet that's sealed off in a room in his museum that's voluntary for visitors to see, and even voluntary for staff to see because of the entities associated with it. Which is very nice for the staff members. It's like, it's so spooky. It's okay, you don't have to see it. I appreciate that. But now on to number 2, a Chris Farley Polaroid. At Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum, he has this celebrity deaths room, which first of all, I think it's really weird for people to fixate on the death of someone they don't know, and I think this item I'm going to talk about is disrespectful. In the celebrity death room, there is a Polaroid of Chris Farley after his overdose that killed him. It was acquired from a police officer that was at the scene. Since I cannot and will not show that photo, just know that it was a photo of his dead body after a drug overdose that visitors have described as sickening, disgusting, shocking, and horrifying. Now, using the image of a dead person a real person, as a gimmick is in poor taste and shows a lack of empathy on Bagans' behalf, and that scares me. So that's included on this list. On to number 1, Peggy the doll in Peggy's room. Now this one has a past. Let's talk about this doll before it got to the museum. Peggy was sent to a British paranormal investigator named Jane Harris after Peggy's previous owner was having some nightmares where the doll would haunt her dreams. That owner would wake up hot and shaken with fevers and hallucinations, and even her local priest couldn't help her out. She eventually figured it was because of Peggy the doll and sent her off to Harris. Once Jane Harris and her team had the doll, they tried to figure out what was up, and they say that Peggy is possessed by the spirit of a woman from London, born in 1946 and died of some sort of chest condition, which is very specific. Wow. Yes, that's the history, but how does Peggy haunt? Well, apparently through dreams, pushing people away from entering her room in the haunted museum, or even light bulbs going out when people mention Peggy's name. Now, people are warned not to look her in the eye because they could feel chest pains, nausea to the point of vomiting, or really bad headaches. And now this could be the spirit within the doll circumventing some of her own pain, or many coincidences lined up together. But either way, many say the scariest thing they saw on their trip to Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum was Peggy. And those are the top 10 scary items at Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum, and what do you think? Would you go check these out, or would you be a little scared, a little brave, or a little skeptic? Now, I think I would be a little skeptic just because of all the research I've done on these, but I think it would be worth it to check it out either way. It's a museum and I love museums. Now, when you let me know what you think down below, make sure to give us a like and subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when we post. I've been your host, Abby Kelly, and until next time, stay spooky and check out Top 10 Central, because that would be fun.